Hello and welcome to Documentary Festival. This session is UK Commissioners Looking Ahead, where some of the leading UK broadcast executives will let you know coming up on their channels. We'll talk about their themes, insights and upcoming opportunities. Joining us today is Alisa Pomeroy, Senior Commissioning Editor for Factual at Channel 4, Guy Davies, Commissioning Editor for Factual at Channel 5, Jo Clinton-Davies, Controller of Factual at ITV, Poppy Dixon, Director of Documentaries and Factual at Sky, and Clare Sillery, Head of Commissioning, Documentaries, History and Religion at the BBC. Welcome. If you've got any questions, by the way, just do pop them in the chat, and I'll ask as we go along. Otherwise, we'll do a short Q&A session. Starting with Alisa, morning. It's been an unprecedented 15 months that we've been through, and hopefully we're slowly emerging from this interminable situation. What are your observations in terms of audience for your content at Channel 4?
Well, I think that because of the pandemic, the thirst for escapism is still there and is still rumbling on. And for us at Channel 4, this basically broadly takes two forms. You get the kind of warm bath TV like Devon and Cornwall, which has been really, really popular, not actually made by our department. But on the other hand, you get sort of surprisingly, always to me, people find great escapism in much darker areas like true crime. And true crime for us and our police procedurals have done really, really, really well during the pandemic and still continue to. I mean, I think it's probably because crime is the one place in documentary filmmaking where you get really, really interesting and suspenseful plot, and people find great escapism in plot. So that kind of stuff has done really, really well for us, in spite of it being the dark end of our programming.
Do you see any changes as we emerge or move forwards, or is it more of the same?
I actually think that kind of thirst for escapism will remain, but we also need to try and make sense of our post-pandemic world, and we'll be looking to commission films that really try and grapple with who are we now that we've come out blinking into the sunlight. So that would be the main change, is we now need to urgently reflect Britain beyond the pandemic.
So you've got a clip for us. Do you want to tell us what we're about to look at?
Yeah, so a big thing for us at Channel 4 is limited series. So this is 2, 3 and 4 parters. And normally these are based on bits of really extraordinary privileged access. Earlier this year, we had Undercover Police Hunting Paedophiles, which was the story of a very secretive covert police unit where the police officers go undercover as paedophiles. And we've got the Real Line of Duty coming up. This particular clip is from Story Films. It's directed by Pete Beard, and it's access to a covert police unit who use very secretive techniques to hunt down men who are trafficking women in the UK. The working title is The Sex Traffickers. The reason I'm showing it is I think it hits that sweet spot where stylistic innovation meets very privileged access. So you'll see in the pace of it, I think what's innovative about it is the pace of it. It has a very unusual pace for documentary filmmaking. And the clip starts as a suspect, who's suspected of trafficking Brazilian prostitutes into the UK, lands at Heathrow Airport, and the team is surveilling him to see where he goes.
Okay, that's great.
I guess what's innovative about that clip is that it basically and the series is it basically plays out policing in real time, which is something you see in drama, but rarely in documentary do you have a sort of 3-minute police chase in a car. We're really, really proud of that series and excited about it.
Would you say that innovation is key to all the ideas that you're looking for moving forwards?
We really try and make innovation the heart of what we do. It's not always possible, but we've got a series that we're really excited about coming up, which sort of takes innovation to the next level, which is called Murder Island, which is a big factual competition which merges drama and documentary. So we're always trying to innovate and experiment, even though quite often they're quite risky plays. So yes.
And finally, what are you really looking for now? Where are the opportunities?
Okay, so the key thing is we have a really urgent need for new returners, successor brands, and we've changed our strategy on how we're going to find those. In the past, we would commission maybe 2 or 3 new things and we would wait to see how they did, and it would take a year or a year and a half. And if they don't land, you're back to square one. So instead, what we're now going to do is we're now going to make 6 or 7 swings of things that we think could go to scale, but commission 4 to 6 parters instead. So we need a couple in the police space, a couple in the medical space. We're looking for male skewed territories like military access. We're looking for innovative new formats. In terms of singles, we really want to regain the mantle of being the home of the author documentary. The new thing at Channel 4 is we're much more open to 90-minuters. And the subject matters have to really, really cut through at 9 p.m. So they need to be quite high impact. So we've got films coming up on Ghislaine Maxwell. We did Lucy the Chimp, Barrymore, etc. And then the other thing that we're really keen to get is more diversity of thought on the channel. So TV there's a stereotype that TV is very kind of metropolitan, left-leaning in its outlook. And we want voices on the channel and films led by people who have opinions that are the kind of polar opposite to this and that you would find surprising on the channel, or subject matters. So we've commissioned a series about Paul Dacre. So the idea of a 3-part series telling 25 years of British history through the eyes of the Daily Mail is quite contrary to what you would maybe expect that Channel 4's viewpoint traditionally might be. So we would
Okay,
really love to hear people's ideas in that space.
great. Thanks very much, Alisa. Moving on, Guy at 5.
Yeah,
How's the last 15 months been at 5? And what's
well,
happened to your audience?
I think we should just thank the producers, to be honest, for the last year and a half, because God, they had the time and they've done some brilliant, absolutely brilliant things for us with new techniques, innovation, iPhones, remote work, all of that. So I think we just got to shout out we're incredibly grateful for that. I mean, what I think we've seen is we've been bucking the trend. I think, ratings have been amazing. I think if we look at some of the things that have been successes, they'll tell you where we are. So echoing some of what Alisa said, so 4 million for Our Yorkshire Farm, 4 million for Ben Fogle in Chernobyl, Critical Condition at 2.5 million, Shannon Matthews, True Crime at 2.5 million. These are the shows that you can see sort of reflect where the audience is. And I think that those, true crime, box setting, warm and inviting human documentary like Our Yorkshire Farm, which has been a phenomenon. I think that's the tone, that's the feel of where we're going. We launched loads of new series over the last year, but I think we've also got to keep our returnables running. So, I think when we look at, Police Hour of Duty, which is the sort of real-time thing that Alisa was talking about, a lot of our police series, A&E series, New Lives in the Wild, all of those things are bedrocks, and we keep them going and we go with long runs. So I think that those classic genres for us are still strong, but the big change in a way is in sort of true crime space and others where we're looking for those event pieces. And I think that that's something that's really changed, probably as a result of streamers, as a result of the last year. I think there's much more event TV that we could do. I think the other thing, which might turn into the clip, first clip I'd like to show, is about doing things which are populist at heart, but have a bigger story to them, and have something that's, challenging, innovative and interesting, but also for Channel 5 hits our very populist audience. I mean, we were up 43% this year at 9 o'clock. So we've got a lot of work to do to keep that going. So we can run that clip. So that's a series from ITN, from Nick Brawl's team. And what's interesting for me is that we could have done, U-Tree, we could have done one programme on Gary Glitter, one programme on Stuart Hall, whatever. But what's interesting is really to tell a story of what what was the Britain that produced these monsters? And that's what's really interesting about it. And because that's quite an interesting, difficult thing to grapple with, to do that popular story, but then unravel what Britain's about, that's an interesting thing to do. And that's a very populist thing to do. That's why we're interested in that. That's why I think that will be a really interesting thing for us for this year.
And what else have you got coming up that you're excited about?
Well, we've got a number of things that, some of which haven't yet been announced. We are also doing a series which is connected to the tabloids. We've got your series, David, about the about guarding the Queen, which is interesting because it sort of ties in. I think it's about Coldstream Guards. It's about there's a royal audience which we know is there, and there's a military audience which we know is there. So it's that sort of mix. The key to that will be scheduling. But that's interesting. We've got a big Nick Knowles project that we're doing, and we've got a lot of crime. Alisa's right. The growth of true crime, the box set experience is really important. And then there's access. And one of the things that I think everybody's saying, as we say, we've got all those staples that we keep returning that are great. But we can think, where do you go next? Where do you go for that audience? The male audience, the male skew audience is the one that I think that we most need to address. And there's a series, if you want to run another clip, there's a series called Submarine that Lucy Willis has commissioned, which feels like a different place. And I think that's where we've got to look for access, is we've got loads of police, we've got loads of medical. Where can we go for that? Something that feels like really unique and new access. So perhaps we could run that clip. I think also travelogue and journeys are something that people have been missing. So we've got quite a few big names coming up in terms of travel, which we're now shooting. And I think that will be important for us. I think it's about how often with talent as well, it's about using that talent in a way as a weapon against the streamers. We have talent who probably in some ways don't travel, but are going to be people that our audience want to spend time with. So I think that's another thing, those kind of journeys, escapism. And I think we will probably move away from more, workman-like presenters. I think that names are going to be really important because it's all about selling to the audience.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Guy. Hi, Jo.
Hi.
How's your 15 months been on ITV?
Really, really busy, and as Guy says, a tribute to all the producers and people who've worked in development tirelessly against all the odds to turn around amazing shows, of which I think we're all incredibly proud, most of them. And anyway, we're all incredibly proud of the effort. So I think what's exciting is that you look at the constraints on creativity and you find ways to work within them and to create something actually more exciting. Because there's nothing like a good constraint to make you think differently and to make the familiar sort of work differently. So I think for us, that's really important. And I think moving forward, which is a terrible phrase, I think it's about everyone's watched every bloody box set on every streamer. And so for us, we have one slot. It sounds like a police emergency, 999. In other words, 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And we can't afford to serve only a niche audience. We love men. Of course we love men, 16 to 34 men, but we need to keep our core. We need to keep housewives. We need to have unit programs that feel absolutely scream, watch me, that they scream that on the EPG, because sure as hell they've got to be sort of inherently self-marketing. And they've got to have an inclusivity, a breadth, and a sense on ITV, I've always said, of sort of inherent drama and inherent entertainment. We're a drama and entertainment channel, and Factual can't be the factual bit. It's entertaining and dramatic Factual. And I think we've got some key needs, but if I show you
The
A couple of things have been, clips. And why Gordon, Gino and Fred, which is Nicola Lloyd's commission, has been really successful is that, again, an awful phrase, it's sort of, well, I was going to say, it has lots of elements that make factual entertainment work. Great talent combination. Think about talent not just as the solo singular person who's doing something, but the talent mashup. Think about which talent belongs to a show. Think about how to use them differently. Think about escapism, aspiration, sheer pleasure. But the two clips I'm going to, and high production values, think about title. This is Gordon, Dino and Fred Go Greek. Mamma Mia is the first episode. Go Greek. Clash of the Titans is the second episode. There's ballsiness, there's attitude in my TV Factual. And you'll see the high production values, but there's also emotion. And you get that emotion and warmth and heart. And you get that in factual franchises like Harry's Heroes, emotion, heart, warmth. It's a way, we only ever do issues through, we don't do issues on the nose. We do issues like testicular cancer, which is, on the balls really, through a prism like The Real Full Monty. We do Harry's Heroes about male mental health. So you come to something, you expect some entertainment, and then it takes you off in a different and deep direction at times, which is why it's both familiar, entertaining with a twist. But here's Gordon, Gino and Fred, the upcoming Go Greek. Now, Gordon, Gino and Fred got about 6 million consolidated. It was our best performing factual entertainment brand. But it's full, packed, with as much takeout as you get in a cookery show. And sorry, in a travelogue show. It's absolutely bursting at other moments with sort of facts and takeout information. So it works on every level. And the sheer pleasure and entertainment of that. But at the same time, that talent, it just gels, but you never feel, although they're fun, they're somehow, and they're enjoying themselves. There's enough jeopardy for them. There's enough that they're thrown into at the deep end, that it's not a jolly. And it's just resonated with the audience. And so I think, talent combinations, fast talent is important, although I'll show you a clip in a minute that isn't talent. But, Bradley and Barney. Bradley and Barney Breaking Dad. Bradley was familiar talent, but in a different situation, on a road trip with his son. We see a presenter that we know for one thing and for many things in a different light as a dad. And Breaking Dad, great attitude in that title. And he certainly got broken. Oh my God, he broke his back in a rodeo. So just seeing people thrown together in a different way can shake up the whole dynamic. But if I show you, so we're looking for more. Go on.
I say, shall we have a look at the next clip and then do a quick roundup of what else you're looking for?
Yeah, I'll show you the next clip because it shows you don't always need talent, but you need something dramatic and extraordinary, but relatable. So I think that, that's about access in a way. It's access to the families. It's about access to Great Ormond Street Hospital, but it's sort of real life drama, and it's got a depth because you're following that sort of almost biblical dilemma of whether you separate your twins or you don't. And yet it's done in a very human way. The science, the scientific element, the operation is embedded in the narrative. So we are looking. But, I don't know how that will do. I have no idea. But I hope that it sort of has a talk about ability factor and something that will feel arresting and draw people in from the off. And I think that we're looking for 2 or 3 things that in documentary formats, we know how. So that is a documentary 2-parter, a set of twin films, if you like. But we would really like those documentary returnable formats. We know how brilliantly Long Lost Family does, Long Lost Family, Born Without Trace. That for me is sort of stories of the extraordinary. Imagine being left on a railway station or outside a public lavatory if you're a family. Extraordinary, but ordinary people that you can relate to in dramatic situations that you can also relate to. So we're looking for documentary formats in that sort of space that, you know, has that universal chord, and also crime formats, as other people say. You know, the world is awash with crime. We know that crime pays, so to speak, but there's a premium on finding a sort of slightly new way in. And I would say to people, think about what crime would look like, or a documentary format would look like, or a factual entertainment format would look like, stripped across a week. It's a very, very good exercise. Imagine that your show, how do you sell it on the EPG and then make it as sticky as Love Island is, because people are going to watch it night after night. And if you can come up with those ideas, and it's a simplicity, thinking about the title, the proposition, the why now, the authentic premise if it's a fact-end format, the talent that might be in it if it's a talent vehicle, and how do you then create something that feels sort of bigger than the sum of its parts, the real scale, because it's got to hold its own in a very competitive landscape. And, you know, we're also looking for competitions in the real world as well, but I don't want a sort of matte version of literary jewellery, or a matte version of a show with Matt Lucas in it. I want a sort of really shiny real world competition show as well. So there are things that we're looking for all at 9 o'clock.
Thanks very much, Joe.
But there is one tiny caveat, something quite interesting, that on ITV2 there is some opportunity for factual as well. Paul Morton is looking for some factual shows, crime. We've commissioned some crime documentaries in that space that have a sort of modernity that play to the ITV2 demographic. And there will also be some opportunity for authored documentaries. What's the ITV2 equivalent of a Kate Garraway? You know, the Kate Garraway single doc for us felt like an event piece. It did incredibly well. But what is that immersive authored vehicle with an ITV2 type of personality immersed in the story some fold?
Thanks very much, Joe. I'll have to move on now. Poppy, hi. What's been successful for you on Sky the last year or so?
So, I mean, the Sky documentaries as a channel only launched a year ago, so sort of bang in the middle of the pandemic, as did, I look after Sky Nature and Sky Crime as well, and they're all very new channels. But I have to say, I think it was a really good year to launch a documentaries channel, because as everyone else has been saying, there's been a sort of proven huge appetite for documentaries, and I think especially docs that fold like a drama and sort of take you on a twisty turny journey like a drama, and that's exactly sort of what we've been looking for Sky Docs. So I mean, for us, it's a delivery. For us, the most we haven't actually landed a whole bunch of our Sky originals yet, because they just started being commissioned sort of as I joined. I think we acquired the Britney Spears documentary, which was a huge success for us, and I think that had a combination of a huge global celebrity and this real kind of mystery question at the heart of it that everybody was dying to know. What's happening with Britney? What's going on? What's going to happen? And then the other things that have done very well for us are the sort of big definitive biographies of much loved celebrities. So films like Tina from Lightbox, about Tina Turner, and Bruno versus Tyson, which looked at Frank Bruno and Mike Tyson, and we're really looking for those sort of big definitive biographies that peel back the layers and reveal somebody as you perhaps didn't know them before. So we have another one coming up about Stephen Hawking, Can You Hear Me?, which has incredible family archive that's never been seen before, family interviews, and really sort of gets underneath the skin of this incredible man, but who was complex and layered in a way that perhaps not everybody might know about.
Shall we? I know you've got a couple of clips. There's one where you've got a sort of a selection of your output. Shall we have a look at that one?
Yes, yeah. So this is just to set it up. This is a sort of brand spot that we're putting out to celebrate 1 year of Sky documentaries, really. So it showcases a few of the projects that have been out, and then a few that are upcoming. So yeah, let's have a look at that.
So that wasn't the clip we were after, but it was pretty compelling anyway. So shall we talk about that film?
Yes, yeah, no. So that, well, perhaps we can play the other one later. So that's a clip of our upcoming Ghislaine Maxwell 3-parter, which launches on the 28th of June, if I've got my dates right. And of course, that, I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It delves into that really complex world of power, money, sex that Ghislaine and Epstein inhabited, and really sort of challenges, that question of sort of who she is, where she came from, and what she may or may not have been involved in. So, I mean, that's a good example of the sort of crime and scandal area that we are looking for on Sky Docs. I also look after Sky Crime, which is very much a sort of true crime network. So if for Sky Docs we're looking for sort of white collar crime, heists, capers, drugs, and the sort of Me Too, sexual abuse stories, for Sky Crime we're very much looking for those sort of stories of unsolved murders or kind of violent crimes against ordinary people. It really is that sort of box setty, twisty turny true crime fodder. So an example of something we've got coming up there would be The Bambas from Mindhouse, which is a series, again, a 3-part series about the sort of perennially interesting case of Jeremy Bamber, and did he, didn't he? Really extraordinary story of this family that were all murdered in their home in the 1980s. So yeah. Should we try and play the other clip?
Yeah, let's have the other clip, and then we can talk about Sky Buckets and how it works and things like that.
Great.
So that's really a good example of the selection of stuff that you do. And how many channels are there? There's nature, crime, documentaries, and sport. Is that?
Well, sports, yeah, but that's sort of nothing to do with me. Sky History as well, which is still handled by the team at A&E, but it is a Sky channel now. I mean, so I think for the moment I'll talk mainly about Sky documentaries, because I think for this audience that's probably the most relevant. But yeah, I think that spot kind of gives you an example of the sort of breadth of subjects that we're looking to cover, but probably also illustrates how we're very much looking for narrative-driven, story-driven films. So Sky Documentaries is not your sort of broad factual channel. We're not looking for current affairs or presenter-led docs or constructed or sort of fact-end. We're very much looking for those narrative-driven feature documentaries and the limited series. So unlike everyone else, I'm not actually looking for returnable series. It's sort of one story which really sort of has a real propulsion and carries you through, whether that's 90 minutes or 3 or 4 episodes, or maybe 5 or 6. But we're not really looking for those 8 to 10 part series that some of the streamers do.
Great, and you've gone perfectly to time. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Poppy. Claire.
Hello.
You've
I
been
hope
waiting.
this is going to work from my phone.
How's your year been at the BBC?
I think the first thing to say, to really echo what Guy was saying earlier, the first thing to say is I am in awe with the sort of range of programs, series, films that have been delivered by the biggest indies to the smallest indies across the board, the range of programs. If you'd asked me a year ago, could some of these things be delivered? I wouldn't have known that they could, from big brands like Ambulance, shows like Glow Up made during the pandemic, and shorter series made by really small indies like Football's Darkest Secret, Uprising, which is coming up, single films like Subnormal. The resilience and the undimmed ambition that there has been from suppliers and filmmakers is just incredible. I think that is the first thing to say. I think we've emerged sort of in commissioning at the BBC, pointing in a slightly different direction, which is that we are now, it's iPlayer first commissioning. So although we are still commissioning, of course the channels are still incredibly important, it is iPlayer first commissioning, which I think is quite a significant change. So our genre are self-commissioning effectively. And what that's going to mean, iPlayer for documentary, it's so interesting, because suddenly you see that that films have just got a much longer tail, for example. So something like the Katie Price film. I don't know if you saw the Harvey and Me film that went out. I think that was 5 million people watched that film, but half of that audience was on iPlayer. Which is quite incredible. And it's a different audience. It's a younger audience that came to it on iPlayer. So when we talk, with iPlayer commissioning, we're always thinking, when we're looking at ideas, who else is going to come to this? There's the Heartland audience, and who else is this idea going to bring to iPlayer? I think the other thing that you can see on iPlayer, we tend to drop increasingly short series, have a day one drop. So on the first linear TX, the whole series will be available on iPlayer. And that's so interesting as well, because it doesn't seem to affect the linear audience, but it will find a different audience on iPlayer. And some series, it's quite surprising, with some things you sort of know what that's going to mean. So it does what you expect. So something like the Zara McDermott film that we did, it's aimed at a young audience. You sort of expect that the bulk of that audience will be on iPlayer. But for example, I think Once Upon a Time in Iraq is a really good example of something that was dropped as a sort of box set on iPlayer that really found its audience on iPlayer. A significant part of its audience came there. So, and we're still learning, it's really exciting, because, there's so many things we can do to curate films and curate series. It was really interesting when Line of Duty was going out. If you saw what we had a series made by Bohemia Films called Bent Coppers, which had originally been commissioned for BBC4. Then we had the detectives, and this series of the detectives has been about OCGs. And with those on iPlayer, with Line of Duty, the content amplifies, has a sort of amplifying effect, and brings an audience to the documentary and vice versa. So if you looked at the top 10 of iPlayer, you could see our Factual series up there with Line of Duty, which was really good. So I think that's the main thing to say about iPlayer. And then other things that I would just note really are what is really fantastic is to sort of see, and it's something I think we're really committed to, that at a time when so many freelancers have probably been thinking, especially if you're starting out in the industry, this has been a very hard period to be starting out in the industry. So I'm really, really pleased that we've got so much young talent coming through, and the commissioners are really committed to we've got new director schemes on BBC Three, but to sort of trying to create a ladder for talent, so that new directors who maybe make their first film on BBC Three will then come through and work on maybe on a big brand like Ambulance, maybe on another single film, but they. It was really good to see Marian Mohammed. I think she won a BAFTA for Best Newcomer. She'd made a new director's film on BBC Three, Defending Dig Up, but she's now working on one of our big box set series that will go out on BBC One and iPlayer. So I think that's really important, and it's something we're really committed to.
So, in terms, shall we have a look at a clip, and then we can talk about what's...
Oh yeah, before I do the clip, can I just say, in terms of what we're looking for with the iPlayer first commissioning, the two questions that all the commissioners will be asking themselves. The first one is, who else is this going to bring to the BBC, to iPlayer? And is this the best way to tell them the story? Those are the two questions that they'll have in mind. There are three sort of categories that we would be commissioning into. There are what I would describe as big brands, which I can talk a bit more about those in a minute. There are the sort of short, limited narrative series, and then there are single films. So on the short narrative series, I'm going to show you a clip of one we've got coming up that actually Mariam Mohammed is going to be working on with Dan Vernon. It sort of speaks. Shall we just show the clip and then you'll see there's a common theme. So that isn't actually a clip, that's been cut to sort of give you a flavour. But what the series will ultimately do is sort of tell the parallel stories of father and daughter. And one of the, for me commissioning something like that, the key thing is that there is an element of unique access to it. I think that's really important. It's a British story which tells us something, in understanding it's something about why we are where we are, who we are. That sort of topicality is really key, and obviously this will have a topical layer in it because of the trial of Ghislaine. And those sort of series for us, they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. As I say, mostly they will be dropped there'll be a day one drop on iPlayer, but the sort of examples that I would, it runs from Once Upon a Time in Iraq. Those are single films, essentially, and they are closed eps. Something like The Detectives, it's observational access, really, but they are closed eps in this series. Uprising, which is a series that we've got coming, that's directed by Steve McQueen and James Rogan. That's got a story arc which takes you from, in the 3 eps, which goes from the New Crossfire to the Black People's Day of Action to the Brixton riots. And that's another really good example of something which it's topical and resonant in an incredible way. You watch that series and it will change what you think about race relations, how you understand them. It just brings a whole new perspective. Though that's the sort of layering that we're looking for in these sort of ideas. We've got one coming up on New Labour. They can also be authored. We've got something on the Nielsen files that's coming up, where a filmmaker, following in the footsteps, it's Mike Ogden this time, but following in the footsteps of what Lisa did on the Ripper files. So they can be authored. They come in all shapes and sizes, but they must be, largely they are British stories. They have layers, they have some sort of unique access. It's not just retelling the story for the sake of telling the story. There has to be more to it than that. We are very oversubscribed in the crime space, I would say, because so many of our big brands are in the crime space already. But I'd say that also, when it comes to unique access, never say never, because when Firecrest pitched the disappearance of Margaret Fleming, they had access to the trial. So, we will always look at those ideas. So those are the box sets. They are about helping us explain our world in some way, I would say. I think if you look at those sort of box sets on a streamer, the box sets are only narrative, and then maybe they'll also commission explainers, if you see what I mean. But okay. These do give context. They are for a British audience, and they help us make sense of the world that we live in and of Britain. And if I could just very briefly, just talk about the brands as well. The big brands, these tend on iPlayer, they won't be dropped, all at one go. They will TX and then go on iPlayer, but the back catalogue will sit on iPlayer. The audience these are very familiar, they're familiar offering for the audience, a place where they like to spend time. They're really, really critical to our docs offering, and they're really critical. This is not what the streamers do. These are big, observational, British access series that show Britain and show us where we live. It's really critical for us that these series come from around Britain and show the whole of Britain. So the most recent series of Ambulance has come from, I think it's in Manchester and in Liverpool. We've had Hospital is in Coventry, and we've also had Forensics has been in the Midlands. But we have now we just commissioned All at Sea. Everyone is always looking for a big brand that's not in the blue flashing light space, and we're hoping this might be one. It sort of offers the audience a whole new perspective on the fishing industry. 22,000 miles of coastline, 7,000 fishing vessels. It gives a perspective that we've not seen before, and that will, I think, using technology, and it's really there's quite an innovative formatting to it. That's coming from an indie in Bristol, a small indie in Bristol and Cardiff. We are really keen to the next big brand that we commission to be with an indie out of London, perhaps co-commissioning it with one of the nations. It's so important, not just for the audience, but also in growing talent, editors, filmmakers all around the country. And these brands are a really useful way to do that, I would say, as well as being fantastic for the audience. So we're actively looking for more.
Thanks very much, Claire. I think that leaves us with just enough time. That's all right. Thanks very much.
Sorry.
Just enough time for a couple of questions. From Suzanne, not sure who would like to take this one up. She's just wondering why people keep referring to the male audience. Are they more challenging to attract? Who wants to have a go at that?
I mean, I can answer that. I just think that for us, that's where our gap is, in a way. I mean, we think that there are more series that we can do for that audience, and at 9 o'clock we just, you've got to think about 9 o'clock for us. That's our key territory. So yeah, I think it's an audience we think actually we need more of that. That's simple as that.
I think for a commercial channel, that male audience 16 to 34 is valuable, but for something like ITV, you want to hook them in and the lighter viewers, but also people, and that's our challenge. So you'd never say we're just doing something for the male audience.
Yeah.
We're doing something, we hope, for everybody. But we're aware in a commercial landscape of some of the sort of commercial priorities, commercial interests.
And I've got one more for you, actually, Joe, from Clover Films. Regarding your extraordinary twins that we looked at earlier, how developed would an idea like this need to be before ITV would agree to commission?
I think that people should come to us with what's on the EPG and 2 lines, and if it's access. This was sold to me by Blink Films with a little sizzle. And that little sizzle is a bit like the pre-title. It wasn't just developed. There were a few twins on that, but also with access to Great Ormond Street Hospital, and 2 sets of operations, one of which had to be put back because of COVID, access to Great Ormond Street Hospital. So they had 3 bullets, if you like, and a little sizzle. And I think Clover Films hopefully will work together, and you're being Clover, and it'll be 4-leaf, and you just need to sort of distill it down to the essence of something, but show that what you've got has a unique quality. It's got a why now, and it feels compelling.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all of you, actually. Thanks, Claire, Alisa, Joe, Guy, and Poppy for your time today. It was really illuminating. And thanks for taking part. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.
Bye. Thanks, David.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, David. Don't know how to get out of this.